truly hope and pray that at the end of our talk, at the end of this conversation, you'll leave with some skills to better navigate the unfortunate circumstances that come along with discrimination and racism and bias, because it's out there.
Hey lady, welcome back to your new favorite talk show, Grown Lady Chat, with me, your host, Dr. Sherunda Simone. In today's episode, I'm going to be sharing with you a two-part series because earlier this year, I had the opportunity to give the keynote address at Rosalind Franklin University School of Medicine Annual Diversity Retreat. Now, this was the inaugural event, so I was so honored and so excited to be able to share my perspective about diversity and how to overcome in specific situations. My speech was well received, and I figured that this would be a great platform to also share the information because we deal with age bias, race bias, gender bias so many times in corporate America and even in our personal lives. So I wanted to make sure that I shared this with you as well because I believe you're going to be inspired and blessed by the information. Now, before I get into part one of the two-part series, I wanted to say welcome if it's your first time tuning in. Thank you so very much. I'm really excited you're here. And be sure to drop a comment down below. Let me know where you're listening from and how you came to find Grown Lady Chat. And of course, if you are a returning viewer, thank you very much. We are directly on target. My goal was to be at 170 subscribers at this point, and we are. So let's make our next goal to 200 very quickly. And the way you can do that is by sharing the videos, share the content, chat it up in the comments because that just helps to push the videos out to as many people as possible. So thank you so very much for those of you who are engaged and active in the Grown Lady Chats community. Now, every episode, I like to remind you that I do random giveaways. So if you'd like to be entered into the random giveaways, very simple, just be engaged in the community. So follow us on socials, and of course, make sure you're subscribed with your bell notifications. New videos go up every Monday and Thursday. Know that if you are a winner of the giveaway, you could get home decor items, skincare, beauty, makeup, faith-based resources, or personal development tools. So these are all things that we as women enjoy and they can benefit our lives greatly. Every episode, I also like to do a question of the day. That's a good way for us to generate good conversation down in the comment section. So be sure to answer the question of the day for this episode. I want for you to comment down below and let me know what is your go-to personal development quote, whether it's something that you came up with on your own or a quote from someone else. Most of you already know mine. If you've been following my journey here on YouTube and on other socials, you'll know that one of my favorite quotes is from Eleanor Roosevelt. No one can make you feel inferior without your consent. Now, I do have a life motto that I live by as a personal development enthusiast and as a motivational speaker. And I'll share that at the end of my video like I do all the time. So stay tuned for that. Hey lady, are you a woman who loves the Lord and who also enjoys beautiful things? Well, if you are, then you are personally invited to join my exclusive Christian women's group. In this group, we chat about clothes, beauty, home decor, parenting, marriage, cooking, and of course, our Christian walk. It's Christian lifestyle all encompassing. So be sure to join by clicking the link below. I hope to chat with you soon. Now back to our show. So that the episodes aren't too long, I've decided to split my entire keynote speech into two episodes. So there'll be a part one and a part two. So today, Monday, when this episode is going live, I'm going to air the first part, and then on Thursday will be the end part or the second part. So make sure that you are subscribed with your bell notifications so that you're able to get the fullness of the information and the summation of my speech. And now it's time for Dr. Sherunda Simone's random but helpful information. Lady, don't forget, you need more hand cream in your purse or your work bag. You're welcome.
You know, my drive when it comes to medicine, being a doctor, I also have a passion to empower, strengthen, teach, enrich, energize, and motivate others in the way of speaking life into situations and speaking life into hard life circumstances. So As a surgically trained podiatrist, I work full-time right now, seeing patients. I do primarily in-office care and in-office procedures. So that is a part of my vocation and training. But my passion is to help others, to speak life into situations. And because of the journey that has brought me to this point, then I do have a very unique perspective. And the role that I am going to play in today's event is one of just empowering. And like I said, it's going to be very vulnerable, very transparent. I have my timer here right now because I'm very verbose. So I'll make sure that I do my very best to hold to the time allotment. I truly hope and pray that at the end of our talk, at the end of this conversation, you'll leave with some skills to better navigate the unfortunate circumstances that come along with discrimination and racism and bias, because it's out there. It's out there. And so we've got to position ourselves in the best way possible as we work toward righting the wrong. Okay, so the title of my presentation is, Who Do You Think You Are? So I want to first start by saying thank you so much to my dear friend, Dr. Lee, as well as Dr. Kyan Keppel, Dr. Williams, and the rest of the committee. I don't know everybody involved, but I'm just so grateful that you have put together this event. It's a very necessary conversation, and I'm honored to be a part of it. And then I want to also welcome the other attendees because it is a Friday morning, and you could be doing many other things, but you've chosen to be here. Who do you think you are? Who do you think you are? It is a sassy question. And anyone who knows me knows that I can be very sassy because sometimes it's needed, okay? We have to have a little sass sometimes to get through all the brass, right? So who do you think you are? That is going to be the topic of my discussion today. And I phrase it as a question because I want for you to, even after today, I want for you to continuously be thinking about that question. And there's a reason for that. And I'll get to that in just a moment. So even after we're done this evening, over the weekend, and even as you continue to experience other life events, be asking yourself, who do you think you are? Because the answer to that question is imperative. Now, I want to also caveat by saying that what I'm sharing today does not replace intervention. It does not replace confrontation. It does not replace addressing the problems at hand. My segment as the motivational component is to be an adjunct in addition to addressing the problems. But again, I want to empower, strengthen, teach, enrich, energize, and motivate you so that when you are in those circumstances, you can come out even like a victor versus a victim when we're talking about overcoming and working through these problems and making a change, all right? So it's not replacement, it's in addition to. Now, every time I start a presentation, I like to remind my audience that life is what you make it. And every thought and action created. So don't get caught slipping, simply hoping or just wishing or even just thinking. No, you've got to get on your mark, get set, let's go, because your divine destiny is pending. And with conviction of heart and daily actions, your visions and dreams and goals, don't you think they're worth defending? But don't be put off by the negativity of others because your vision was given to you. Your mind conceived it, your heart believes it, and it's with your daily actions that you'll see your vision through. Because life is what you make it, and every thought and action created. Let's start off with a story, okay? So this is a story about a doctor. We'll call her Dr. Smith. Dr. Smith was a very highly qualified attending. She had finished a rigorous surgical program and she graduated with high honors from med school. And she was working in a large practice with multiple doctors, multiple locations, and she was doing well, but she had a desire for just something smaller and maybe even to own her own practice, right? So she's working for this big group and she decides to start applying. Well, she finds this associate position, and it was in the location she wanted, it was the pay she wanted, and the bonus was that the managing doctor, the owner of the practice, was thinking about phasing out in the next 3 to 5 years. So there was the opportunity, the option to buy the practice. So it seemed as though everything was lining up. Okay, so she applies for the job. And when she sends her application and she sends over her CV, her surgery logs, her letters of recommendation, and everything is in tip-top order. Okay, remember, she's highly qualified. And she got a really positive response, very positive response from the would-be hiring practice. So much so that they began discussing potential hiring, right? So it was very early conversations, but they were discussing nonetheless. And then the would-be hiring practice asked Dr. Smith to send over a photo, okay? But let's put a pin in Dr. Smith's story, because I want to go back to the question, all right? So the question of the hour is, who do you think you are? And I frame that as a question, like I said, because I want for us to continually ask ourselves that question. And what I've realized over the years, dealing with my own experiences of discrimination, ageism, racism, bias, prejudice, okay? For whatever reason, my hair, my skin color, my accent, my religion, whatever it was, I've realized that there are certain common threads. And they are usually in the form of a challenge, but it's in question format. So the common threads I've noticed are that when people challenge, it's based on what gives you the right. What gives you the right to occupy this space? Or what makes you qualified, right? That's another challenge that is often given. Or what makes you eligible to be here? What makes you eligible to be my doctor? I've been asked that question before in various ways and directly. Or, especially in the circles or the experiences of harassment, why should I respect your boundaries? So when I mine all of that down, it can be encapsulated in the question, who do you think you are? So let's go back to Dr. Smith's story. So of course, Dr. Smith sends over the photo. Why not? You're discussing possible joining up the practice, hiring, and then possibly buying the practice. What's the harm in that, right? So she sends over her photo. Well, nearly immediately, the calls stopped coming. And when Dr. Smith called or sent an email, her communication was not being returned, right? So initially, they were talking about 2 to 3 times a week, whether it's by telephone or by email. But it soon became every time Dr. Smith reached out to the practice, they were busy. The doctor hadn't come in yet. The doctor was in the operating room. He was seeing patients. He was, otherwise disposed. And it wasn't until after maybe a month or so of little to no communication that Dr. Smith realized the practice had hired one of the residents that she was training. So even though she was a part of this large practice, private practice, she still had roots and, helping out with the residency, right, in the local hospital. So she realized that they went ahead and hired another doctor who was actually a junior to Dr. Smith, who wasn't attending. All right, so the importance of the question, because we know what the question is, who do you think you are? But why is that question important? Well, the importance is because if we don't know the answer, then we will be forced to live someone else's answer for you, right? If you don't know who you are, you will be forced to live someone else's answer. Now, it's pixelated. The picture quality isn't all that great, right? It's over 12 years old, and it's a picture of a picture. I've lost some postpartum baby weight, thank God, and my hair is grown, but this is the photo that I sent over. So I am Dr. Smith, now Dr. Josie, happily married, and this is the photo that stopped all communication. I was brought back to that awful feeling that just on the photo, not on the merit, that was so impressive, but just on the photo, communication stopped and they went on to hire someone else. with no explanation. The only change was the photo that was sent. So what I want to do today is I want to get to the answer. Now, remember, this is not replacing confrontation of problems. This is not replacing addressing the problems. This is not replacing any structural change that need to happen. This is a heart-to-heart answer. Because what we know to be true is that the way we respond to life, the way we respond to what happens, that's where it really matters. Because people can do things to you. People will do things to you. People will try and tear you down. People will try and put you in a box, right? But it's how you respond to it. So this is what we want to focus on today. So the answer, what I've realized in, like I said, many years of dealing with this, I've realized that the answer can be drilled down into 3 things. All right. So the first thing is we can find the answer when we are prepared, when we are strategic, and when we revoke consent. All right. So let's get into it. Prepared. Years ago, I came across this quote by Anais Nin. Right, so she was a writer many years ago, and while I do not know her entire body of work, this quote in particular, it struck me. And I've kept it at the forefront of my mind and my heart all the time, even, in personal circles, because today, yes, the focus is more on formal settings, professional settings, but what I'm sharing, you can parlay it into your personal life. So the quote reads, "We don't see things as they are. We see them as we are." I'm going to repeat that. We don't see things as they are. We see them as we are. And what that simply means is that it's human nature to view life through our own optics, our own experiences, expectations, skills, limitations, boundaries. That's the human nature. Now, yes, we are all working toward becoming a more evolved people, a more accepting people. But human nature, at the very base of it, is that we use our own optics, our own lens. Now, when I think of that quote, it reminds me of an experience I had during my 3rd year of residency. So for me, my program was 3 years long. So by the time you end your residency program, you're expected to be able to function pretty much on your own, right? And I'm sharing this for those who are present who might not understand that. So if it's redundant to most, just bear with me. So at the end of my surgical residency, right, I was pretty much expected to be able to function as a full-time provider and surgeon. So I was very eager because I was the primary resident on the case, right? So I'm in between surgeries and I'm excited. So I go to check on the operating room, much like the one you see in the picture. And they were in between surgeries, but I wanted to make sure everything was just right. So I go in, and before I can even say anything, there is a nurse who is standing at one of these mobile computers, similar to what you see here. And before I can say anything, she, of course, she has her full OR protective gear on, but she pulls her glasses down and she looks over the room of her glasses and she says, "Okay, look, we've got to get this room turned around quickly, okay? Because this doctor is not going to want to wait. So we have to chop, hurry it up, and we're already running behind." I thought to myself, wow, her optics are wrong. And it brought me back to the quote by Anais Nin. And that is, "We don't see things as they are. We see them as we are." See, her optics were wrong. They were askew. On seeing me enter the room, she immediately assumed and expected that I was a part of either housekeeping or the technical crew, which is absolutely vital in medicine, okay? A very necessary part of medicine. But her expectations versus the reality, they were off, because this happened to me before. Okay, so I was prepared for this, okay, going back to the first part of the answer to the question, who do you think you are? I was prepared for this because many a times I would be walking down those same halls in the hospital and I'd be walking with my colleagues. We would all be residents together. and we would all be dressed similarly, but they would be of a different race or gender. And upon seeing us all walking together, another hospital staff member would come up to me and remind me that they needed a C-arm or an X-ray machine in OR4. They never said that to my colleagues, but they said it to me. Or someone would see me walk into the doctor's lounge appropriately, and they would expect for me to clean up the extra napkins that had fallen. So I was used to this treatment, but the expectation versus the reality, see, the reality was that I was a graduate of medical school. We have got to realize that whatever we bring to the table, we have to know without a shadow of the doubt, and that's the preparation. Now, that will change with time. With time, that will change as your skills grow, as your experiences grow, as your talents grow, but you have to know what you bring to the table, because when you don't, you will be challenged. And if you don't know the answer, you'll be unprepared. And many a time before, I was unprepared. And that interaction would have brought me to my emotional knees. It would have messed with my mind. It would have made me feel uncomfortable, but I was prepared, because I know that people have skewed optics. Now, the second part to that is when we do bring it, whatever we're bringing, all of us, all of our excellence and our talents and our skills, we have to bring it with class, okay, and confidence. Now, I know you don't think that I just let that sweet nurse just go. I know you don't think that, right? But I didn't do it how I wanted to. Okay. Instead, I reeled it back in. Okay. And I said, no, I have to bring it with class and confidence, because I'm not going to go to her expectation. I'm not going to serve that. Instead, I'm going to invite her in no uncertain terms to rise to the expectation that was appropriate. So I looked at her and I paused for a moment, and I walked right up to her and I said, you're right. I would very much like the surgery to happen on time. And please be sure that you pull the right glove sizes. I wear size 7 and 7.5 because I always double glove. And furthermore, here are the x-rays. Please be sure that someone puts them on the view box. This is before everything was totally digital. Paused for a moment, and then I went to walk away. But I didn't walk away before I saw her try to yank her foot out of her mouth. Okay? So I'm sharing this not to say, oh, kudos to me, but to let you know that when you do bring it with class and confidence. Because there are things that you can do in the world that nobody else can. Whereas, yes, we might serve similar roles. When you show up with all of your expectations and excellence and your reality, you must bring it, and you must bring it with no uncertain terms. And you must also bring it with class and confidence. And that is the key to preparation. We have to expect the expected. As a doctor, I know that on Monday mornings, undoubtedly, there's going to be one piece of equipment that does not work. Okay, the computer is going to be running slow. The program won't load. I have come to expect it. I also have come to expect that I might have 1 or 2 add-on patients, because you know what? People had a good weekend and, things happen. They eat a little bit more than they should with the red wine and the cheese. And so there's going to be a gout flare up. I'm a podiatrist. I've come to expect it. So expect the expected, because if we don't, we'll get knocked off our feet every single time, and we won't be able to show up with all that we have to offer. I've been there before, so I've learned over the years to expect the expected. However, when we are expecting, we do not accept the expected. Expecting is not the same as accepting. Instead, we prepare for it. So emotionally, mentally, remember, that is the component that I'm serving in today. While we are working toward changing the status quo, we must still prepare for the expected. Now, that does not mean walking into every situation and looking for the problems, but it does mean that when those unfortunate circumstances happen and when those negative situations occur, discrimination, bias, ageism, racism, when they happen, we expect it and we're prepared for it so that we can still show up and bring all that we have to offer to the table. So being prepared, expect the expected. Do not accept it, but expect it and prepare for it instead.
All righty, lady, that is it for today's episode. I do hope you enjoyed it and you got something from what I shared. I will be loading part 2. All right, so part 2 comes on Thursday, so make sure that you tune in. You can get the fullness of my speech and the end, and I'll bring everything together. Be sure to answer the question of the day, all right? Make sure you follow on all the socials, and don't forget about the random giveaways. Until next time, remember, I am Dr. Sherunda Simone, and I will either see you at the top or from the top. You decide. Bye.